Welcome, welcome. It's been a while since we've seen each other last. Last time we did a video was well before break, so here's our first video since then. We are diving into Chapter 4. This is talking about rational numbers, and in this one we're going to be recapping how to do fractions to decimals. So here we go. First thing we need to remember about turning fractions into decimals is that fractions are division problems. So go ahead and get this part right into your notes, that fractions are division problems. Let's get a fraction set up so we can see what that actually means. We're going to do 3/7. And you'll notice right here that this line is actually a division bar. So this line would be read as the exact same thing as 3 divided by 7. That really helps you understand how to start to set it up, is if you really understand that fractions are just division problems. So anytime you see that fraction bar there, know that it means divided by, and then we just read it in order, 3 divided by 7. Understanding that a fraction bar just means division is like the first step in really getting your division set up. Now the next thing that you need to do is actually put the right number under the house so that you can actually long divide correctly. This is where a lot of people do mess up, is they put the wrong number under the house and then they get the wrong decimal to represent their fraction. So one thing that I always use is this little man. And so if we draw our fraction in here and our fraction is 3/7, I put this little man right next to our fraction because he's going to help us set our division up. So this little man really doesn't like fractions, loves division, so he's going to push and push and push and push on this fraction until it tips over. The first thing that it's going to do is we got to recognize that this fraction bar right here is going to tip over and it's going to start becoming vertical like that. So now if you can just picture that fraction bar from this little man getting knocked over, and now that fraction bar is right here. Now looking at the entire fraction, think about what number would fall to the right of this new fraction bar. If this whole thing would topple over, it would probably, boom, start looking like that. So let's get them back. And then the first thing that's going to go on the right side of the fraction bar would be that 3. So that 3 is going to go on the right side of the fraction bar, leaving the 7 to stay on this side. Now, all you need to do is connect that fraction bar to a long division line, and you have your long division set up. Our little man helps us get the right number under the house, so now we can long divide. Didn't have to write anything down here. All we're looking for is just so you can remember the little man. In class, I'll be asking about that little man. I'll be asking a question about what he does and what his purpose is, so make sure that you remember that he helps you set up your long division. Now with our division set up, again, here you're just listening, because I'm just going to go through an example quick, so this is just for your viewing pleasure. Now that we have something set up, now we just need to do the actual division piece. And now we know that we have our traditional division process of divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down. If you don't remember those, I always remember dead monkeys smell bad, or dad, mom, sister, brother. You can create your own acronym if you need to, but this is our process for division. So first, we're going to tackle that division piece. And we know that 7 can't go into 3. So that makes a huge problem for us when figuring out a decimal. So we need to do something pretty drastic here, something we don't always do with division in order to allow us to move forward. I'm going to put a decimal and a 0 here, because now I still haven't changed my problem at all. This is still 3 divided by 7, but now I just added an extra decimal so that I can start to work with this math. As soon as I put that decimal in, I'm going to raise it straight up in my answer. And now I'm not dealing with 7 going into 3, but I'm still dealing with 7 going into 30. Since I'm dealing with that 30, my number is going to go right up here. So however many times 7 fits into 30, my number goes up in that little box. 7 goes into 34 times, and now I'm done with that division step. So now I move on to multiplication, and I say 7 times 4 equals 28. And now right now I'm just ignoring the decimal and just treating this like else, because now I have my decimal up in my answer, I don't have to worry about it anymore. So since 7 times 4 is 28, now I can subtract, and I will get 2 left over. So my last step is to bring down that B level. So now I have nothing over here to bring down, but I still want to make sure that I'm getting an accurate decimal, so I can just tack on an extra 0, because I can add zeros all day to this after I put that decimal point in, and it won't change the value. This is still read as 3.00, which is exactly equal to 3. And so now I can still bring down my 0 and now start my whole DMSB process again. So now I'm asking myself, how many times can 7 go into 20? 7 can go into 20 twice, so I put my 2 up top. I go into multiply mode, and so now I go 7 times 2, and that's 14. I subtract, I get 6, and then I can bring down an extra 0. Typically, I'm going to say that if you have two numbers in your decimal, that's usually pretty darn solid. If you want to go to 3 or 4 to try to push it, that's totally okay too. Usually we try to round to two numbers after a decimal point. Just for the sake of this purpose, I'm going to go one more decimal point. I'm going to run out of room down here, so let's see if I can shrink this a little. There we go. Ooh, I'm losing some stuff. We'll not shrink it. And then I'll say that 7 can go into 60, let's say 8 times, because 7 times 8 is 56. And now I have that remainder of 4 left over. Now I'm going to for sure stop. Even though I have a remainder of 4 left, I know that my decimal is 0.428. And that's how we start to look at dividing fractions into decimals. For this next one, I'm going to throw some terminology at you. So I'm going to do a quick problem. You're just going to watch me do it, and then I'm going to have you write down a vocab word with an answer. You're just listening for right now on this, for this part of our video, but then I'm going to have you jot down something right after I'm done with this problem. So one problem that we're going to do is 1/2 and turn that into a decimal. A lot of us know this as a decimal already. I put my little man up. He knocks over my fraction, and I'm going to get the 1 under the house. So put a 1 under the house, 2 goes on the outside. Now I'm asking myself, 2 goes into 1, can't do it. Decimal there, add a 0, decimal goes straight up. 2 goes into 10 5 times. 2 times 5 is 10. I have 0 remainder. That means my decimal is 0.5. This decimal is called a terminating decimal. Check out our little terminator here. Terminating decimal because it has a definitive end. There are no other decimals after it, meaning that the decimal terminates, it ends, it comes to a finish, there's no more that we can do. So I'm going to have you jot this down. Terminating decimal, 0.5. Here, I'll circle it for you. I would like this part written down. Obviously, you don't have to draw I started to overload the terminator there. You don't have to draw him. Just give me terminating decimal and 0.5. Nothing else after it. So that decimal is terminating, it ends, it has a definitive stopping point. In this next example, again, you're just going to listen to me real quick. I'm just going to show you another form of decimals. We're going to put one more word into our vocab notes. And again, this is just need you listening at this point. I'm going to solve, and then I'm going to have you write the term at the end of my solving. So here we got 1/3. We're going to put our little man. He's going to tip it over, and we're going to get the house. And under the house is going to go to the 1. On the outside is the 3. I go through my division skills, and I get 3 goes into 1. Can't do it. Decimal. Raise the decimal up. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract away. I get 1 left over. And then I can bring down another 0. Now I have the exact same problem that I started with, 3 going into 10. Again, it goes in 3 times. So now I'm starting to recognize that there's a pattern. 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract, and I get 1 left over. Bring down the 0. This pattern goes on and on and on. This is called a repeating decimal. We call it repeating because these 3's will go on forever. There will be no stop, no termination here because it will never end. You saw me put this bar up top here. This bar is just a repeating bar. That tells me that those 3's go on and on and on and on. So this part I need you to jot down into your notes. This repeating decimal with 0.33 repeating. One more quick example for us. If you start to deal with mixed numbers, that's really no different, and just got to think about how you would read it. You would read this as 4 and 1/3, meaning you have 4 wholes and then 1/3 of a whole. So now, if we're thinking about this as a decimal, you would think that if I have 4 and 1/3, that's 4 plus 1/3. So that means I have 4 wholes, then I put my decimal, and then I just got to figure out what 1/3 is as a decimal. And from the previous example, we know that that equals 0.3 repeating. And so now you just carry over your division of your fraction after that, putting it after the decimal point and after your whole number. So the mixed number as a decimal would just be 4 1/3, or 4.3 repeating. With that new set of knowledge, I do need you to try one of these in your notes before you try some homework problems. So I would like for you to try out 1/4 as a decimal. And if you know it as a decimal already, still show me how you would use division to get there. So show me that you understand the process of the little man knocking him over, that you understand about the decimals, and how to use that division process to get 1/4. So please solve 1/4 as a decimal in your notebook. It will be a terminating decimal and not a repeating one. After you have solved, Actually, press pause while you're solving, and after you think you have an answer, go ahead and press play, and I'll reveal an answer. Welcome back, and if you got 0.25 as your answer, you are 100% correct. Going through 4 goes into 10 twice, have your 8, subtract, and bring down your 0. 4 goes into 20 5 times, subtract, and you're left with nothing. Now we have our 100% terminating decimal. Our terminator, our decimal ends. It has no remainder, no repeating stuff, nothing going on. It ends at 0.25. So 0.25 is our answer for 1/4. Now let's end with our joke of the day. Our joke is, why can't a nose ever be 12 inches long? Because then it would be a foot. If it was 12 inches long, then it would be a foot. Oh, that's it for our day. So adios. Thank you very much. Get ready for some homework problems to try. Thank you for watching our video.